Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So today's upload is going to be a video about why a cold November, May set the stage for a very snowy and cold winter. So I made several of these videos in the past based on, I think it was August, why cold August may indicate a cold winter, or why a cold summer, or why a wet summer may indicate cold winter. Now it is why a snowy or why a cold and snowy November may indicate that. And as you know, November across much of the U.S. so far has been very cold and chilly. Records have been broken in terms of cold temperatures. And it seems like it will continue through at least November, expanding into December as well, possibly. So this is why, this may indicate cold and snowy winter. If you like what I do on this channel, please consider subscribing to this channel. Please consider liking this video. All you gotta do is hit this red subscribe button, and you are subscribed. It lets me know that you guys like these videos, and it really, really, really means a lot. So thank you for even considering doing that. Thank you so much. So first off, let's look at previous Novembers that have been cold. Notice how I just chose a bunch of years, 2018, 2014, 2013 of the most memorable years of the recent past. But then we go back as far as 1985, which I don't remember, obviously. I wasn't even born. I was born in 2002, making me 17 years old. But some of you may remember some of these Novembers, even if you don't, even if you were alive. Most likely don't really remember. Oh, then November 1993 was cold, but they were. And you can see these Novembers, it may seem like this was bitter cold, but I mean, notice that it's only negative 2.5 as it's adjusted for all these years being cold on top of each other. Notice it may seem like ridiculous cold. It's not -4 or -6, which is usually for like 1 month. If you look up these analogs, this color is for 1 month, or this color is usually indicated by -6 for 1 month, but because it's many months, it's only -2.5. Still, very, very cold and significant. So, what does this mean? What does this mean for all the years that were cold? What does December look like? You can see the cold moderates a bit. It's still there, and that's what I'm thinking this year. It may be something like this. It does not look as if December will be very cold this year. At least not as a below average as November was. It may be like last year, 2018, if you remember, especially across the eastern and northern U.S. It was very warm December. There was not a lot of snow in my location, Chicago. I remember we got 0.2 of an inch, so that is ridiculously low. But for November we got, I think it was 14 or 15 inches. So there's a lot of obvious differences in these models, and there's a lot of differences between these years. So what will, and sorry, I didn't mean to say the word models. I was talking about these analogs. And what will be next this year, it's hard to say, but usually you could see that cold moderates. It's still there to a significant portion of the U.S., but the warm air expands in the west and it kind of decreases in the east. January, even less so, which this is surprising because last year January was very cold, and a cold November may indicate a chillier January across the eastern U.S., but nothing of extraordinary any sort. Notice how across the western U.S. it gets pretty warm, and this was a little bit surprising for me, as I thought January would be a very cold month based on a cold November. However, as you notice, these are just basically all the same years. They're just 1 year ahead because and November is occurring in the past year, as January is the new year now. So this is still the same November, still the same years, and now this wasn't really surprising. Notice how February, all hell just broke loose across the United States, especially the northern portion. Look at that, not much above average at all. Only in the southeast and parts of the Four Corners area by Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado. But really, the cold just really breaks loose across the northern U.S. and this would be, probably this would bring Alberta Clippers, snowstorms, pattern changes, abrupt cooling and warming, which would also increase probably the potential for some nor'easters at this time frame. There's no way to check if there was nor'easters for all of these winters combined at February. I could go one by one, 1990, 1992. I could tell you that in January of 2015 and 2014, or February, it was snowy, it was cold, and it was, I think Winter Storm Nemo, if anyone remembers that, occurred in January, or I know it's 2014, I'm pretty sure it was. or was it 2013? Might have been 2013, but nevertheless, there was many winter storms that occurred around the 2014, 2015. 2015 was just a record breaker for Boston. I think it was the snowiest season ever recorded. So, you know, if a certain pattern sets up like this right here, we may be looking at a very cold pattern and potentially snowy as well. I'll show you the precip amounts in just a minute. So March of these years also is just very cold, and the reason I'm showing March, many may be thinking, oh, March, that's spring, you know, forget about winter. Well, if you remember last year, or I should say this year, last season, March was, you know, one of the snowiest months of the winter for many locations. It was just really snowy. I mean, the cold did not let up. It was like a polar vortex in the beginning of March. There was just so much cold. If you remember, in my location, the trees opened up really late. Their leaves, their blooms, it was very late. And even when they did so, it was, you know, it was like frost and freeze potential almost every day, risking the blooms. It was a very chilly spring, which obviously, in my, you know, in many locations, the fashion now is kind of going straight from winter to summer and kind of skipping over spring and fall as well. But you know, that's what it is. And there's a saying in Chicago that there's two seasons to the year. One is winter, and the other is construction season, and that's pretty silly, but you could also just say summer and winter as well. I mean, there really is no spring or fall in the past several years. This year was okay, a little bit short. The fall, actually fairly short. Last year was better. This is April now of all those years. Notice I'm still showing April as it's still kind of chilly towards the north, and that's enough below average right there to definitely still have some snowstorms or snow systems, snow impactful, you know, systems. But again, at this point, at this time of the year, it's definitely going to be less and less noticeable, the cold, as the average temperatures are going to be warming up. But still, you know, impressive how long this cold could last, and you know, even if December turns out to be warm, and many people are going to be like, oh yeah, this winter's a blowout. You know, the last 4 months of winter, which now it seems April is a month of winter, may turn out, you know, very cold and very chilly, and surprisingly, you know, significant compared to what the normal person would be thinking. Now let's look at the precipitation. So this is basically just precipitation rate over millimeters per day, and basically where it is above or below average. And notice how across, again, the same years, this is just January, I didn't include December, really because I just forgot to move it back all 1 year, and that takes quite a bit of work, so I kind of forgot to do that. But again, notice that the only area that really is noticeable, the other areas, you know, above, below, not really, nothing really huge. A little bit drier in Ohio Valley right here in Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, Kentucky. But then notice across the Northeast, it's above average quite significantly. So that, again, if that was January, you remember, wasn't the coldest month out of all of my months on this. But it was still rather chilly, and you know, if we get above average precip across those locations, we could still probably definitely be looking at a nor'easter or two, or a big system, you know, affecting the Northeast with some significant snowfall, which again happened in the 2015 timeframe. That was the most memorable one, the most recent one, where Boston, I think, again, got the record amount of snow like ever. As far as I'm concerned, that's what it was, and that was like the big deal. So, notice now, let's move on to February. It's above average for a good portion of the southern U.S., the western U.S., and just across, in general, a good portion of the country. So, again, if I go back to February, notice it was cold, very chilly. Again, notice how the cold extends all the way down to the Ohio Valley, and really the above average precip is kind of south of that. That's because usually on the, you know, that's where the Arctic air mass is. This is kind of a cool representation. They always, you know, it's in control over here, and the precipitation events or a storm system or low pressure usually doesn't really want to interfere with it, as it can't, so it just goes to the south and brings quite a bit of precipitation for these areas, which, you know, if it's cold enough, could still be snow. Notice, though, how it's still relatively above average, even as far north as Wisconsin, which was marked as below average. So definitely this would be a scenario for snowier conditions. Notice there is no drier conditions really for the United States as much as there's above average. I mean, yeah, there's some few pockets of a little below average, but there's way more pockets of above average. And this was January through April, just as a whole. You could see the precipitation right there. January through April. And notice across the East Coast, it's extremely above average. So that is very cool and noticeable, as that may, lead to some, form of heavy precipitation for the Northeast. Heavy snow, snowstorms. So that's very cool, and we'll have to keep an eye on for that. The rest of the United States, nothing really noticeable. Few spotches of below, few spotches at above. Into the southern U.S., it's a little bit above in terms of precip. And again, I called that for the United States this year as well. I'm calling for some above average precipitation to occur across Florida, Louisiana, Alabama, Georgia, and Texas as well. So that is basically it for today's video, guys. Yeah, I just wanted to give you a quick little rundown of, the scientific data, really nothing of speculation. And I mean, it is kind of speculation, because even though we had, the November is cold like we had of all these years, does not mean that it will turn out to be like all these years. But it may be an outlier, which I'm sure a few years in here are outliers. So, that may be a thing. But again, in the previous years, as of 2015, 2014, 2003, the more recent ones, and 2019, when a cold November has occurred, usually a cold winter has followed, and that has been especially accurate for the past several years. So past several years that have had a cold November, that is. So, yeah, that is, that. Consider subscribing to this channel. Consider liking this video. I do more of these videos all the time. Long-range outlook, snowstorm predictions, videos like this, and anything of that sort. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you all guys in the next episode. See ya. Bye.